Okay, we are live. We're ready to go. Call the meeting to order, 5 o'clock. Before I get to the adoption of the agenda, it's been noted from administration we need to remove 3.1 and section 10 reports. Given it's considered a special meeting, those ones shouldn't be on the agenda. So just looking for any other adoptions from administration or from council.
Which ones were those?
3.1, adoption of minutes from the last council meeting. That'll go to the next meeting.
Yeah, your worship, as this is a special meeting, yeah, the only items on the agenda that are published to the public can be heard.
All right, and then section 10, given that should be at a full council meeting, a special one, so we're gonna omit section 10 reports for this meeting. Councilor Dean?
Move to adopt the agenda as amended.
All right, motion on the floor. Any discussion on that? See none, call the question, all in favor? That is carried. So that'll move us right down to our delegations, starting here with Alberta Transportation. How are you doing this evening?
Excellent. Yourself?
Oh, not too bad. I guess we'll start here with a round of introductions for you. You probably have a lot of faces you don't know here, so we'll start Mr. Frank.
Gordon Frank, CAO.
Carrie Stevens, Executive Assistant.
Devin Williams, Councillor for Assiniboine Timu.
Rich Prestige, Councillor Blue Ridge.
John Burrows, Councillor Whitecourt West.
Dave Cush, Councillor for Anselmo.
Peter Kilkin, Councillor Moose Lake, Freeman River.
Jeremy Wilhelm, Whitecourt East.
Alan Dean, Whitecourt Central.
Richard Plack, Manager for the county.
And for you, I'm Michael Blatros. I'm the Regional Director for North Central and Fort McMurray regions.
All right, let's start here. I guess Presenter, Mr. Plack.
Good evening, Reeve and Council. Administration was recently asked to extend an invitation to Mr. Botros to come to this meeting and discuss some of the concerns that you have listed, the 4 points on the RFD. And here he is. So if you have some questions on any of those.
Okay, I'll just, for anybody on the public watching, a couple of the areas that we have specific areas of concerns are the Highway 33 bridge south of Fort Assiniboine, Highway 658 north of Blue Ridge at the Athabasca River, 658 north of Fort Assiniboine, at the Freeman River, and then the Freeman River campground. Some concerns from the property owner. I guess we'll start from council. Any questions from council to minister? Councillor Williams?
Just with the Highway 33 bridge south of Fort Assiniboine crossing the Athabasca River, there was a big hole, lots of concern, just lots of questions about replacement or a timeline on that. And if there's any information regarding that bridge at all would be great.
Okay, maybe I'll give a little bit of quick history on it. So we do recognize the age of the structure. It is nearing, it's not at its service life, but it is nearing. We undertook a bridge planning study back in 2014. We had a couple of open houses in Fort Assiniboine where we presented various alignment options. I think we looked at 6 different corridors. Through the public open houses, we narrowed it down that basically the existing corridor is where the replacement structure should be. Based on everything at that time, the conclusion was that the bridge would be next to the existing bridge, so basically on the upstream side. Basically this avoids any conflicts. There's major utilities on the downstream side of the existing bridge, plus there's the big overhead power lines, which would be extremely expensive to relocate and move, and would also complicate construction. So the conclusion was that the best place to put the bridge would be on the upstream side. So the biggest hurdle is done where we do have bridge planning. As part of budget 23, so this year's table budget, funding has been allocated to begin the engineering design for the bridge replacement. So basically, we are finalizing the terms of reference. We will have a consultant on board late fall to begin the construction. And in the meantime, we are going into budget preparations for '24, where we want to again put forward consideration for construction dollars so that once the engineering is completed, we have our permits that we can then just go into construction. But right now, we do have the funding for engineering design.
Councillor Cookman.
I just have a question on timeline because my understanding is the Smith Bridge and the Calling River Bridge, it's up to 5 years before we see any actual construction happen. From the time that they had the engineering begin to construction was that time frame. Is that what we can expect?
Okay, so if you're referring to the Smith Bridge, which is in the MD Lesser Slave,
Yes.
that's on a local road, and that one's got a lot more complicated. They're starting from scratch. And a little bit about that bridge is they're not 100% sure where the new bridge is going to go, because the existing site actually has geotechnical issues, and that's one of the problems that bridge's experience is in that river area where that bridge is situated. It's a geotechnically sensitive area, and so they don't know actually where the new bridge is going to go, whereas we already do. So engineering, we anticipate to be about a year and a half. And then as part of that, we will begin right-of-way negotiations, acquisitions, and permitting. The permitting is the one that is completely outside of our control because we have two major groups that we need permits from, is DFO, Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and then of course Nav Canada, because it is a navigable water course.
Councillor Cookman.
Yeah, just a second question or just a comment. One of the issues that it's a standing joke amongst our jet boating community, which part of the bridge we go under, because there's always bits and pieces falling off into the river. And so that's a little bit disconcerting for the residents. We know that we know there's been issues there for a long time. And is there any way that a municipality can actually lobby to expedite that process?
That'll be, to answer the lobbying part, that's up to the municipality how they choose to move that forward.
Councillor Dean.
Yeah, thanks through the chair. Thanks for coming, and we hope that process goes as quick as possible, obviously. Who do you have to acquire the right-of-way? You're saying right-of-way acquisition as part of the construction process or permitting process and right-of-way acquisition. So who are you buying the land from?
So individuals, I don't know the individual landowners, but it'll be anybody that's affected by where the bridge location is and where the new roadway alignment is going. So on the north or the west side, the one part that is going to be impacted is the Freeman River Campground area, which I believe is municipality, so we will be in contact with municipality. And then on the other side of the river, I don't know off the top of my head who's has all the land in that area.
Any other comments from council? Councillor Prestidge.
Through the chair, Highway 658, bridge over the Athabasca. I don't know if you got these pictures.
Oh, we're very familiar with it.
Well, this is kind of got the time. I started taking pictures there in 2016. The full abutment was there. Now, we're probably 50 feet away from the bridge. The whole river channel has moved north probably 150 feet. If we have another flood like we did this year, we'll be right at the road.
Fully aware. So, if I may, we were originally going to be doing a whole bunch of guide bank work and repairs last winter. There was some issues with regards to permitting, because that's always a challenge. This spring, we did undertake what's called a bathymetric survey. So basically, we take depth and we map the bottom of the riverbed. This occurred prior to the floods. The floods came through, and we actually went and did a follow-up bathymetric survey. And what we're doing is we're taking that information, we're actually updating our design, and what the intention is that we will be putting out a tender later this year, towards the fall, basically to build guide bank spurs as well as rebuilding part of the channel. We're having to revise the old design based on what occurred in this last flood, so we should be seeing some construction activity over the winter upstream and downstream of the bridge.
Yeah. What's happening mostly is the island in the middle of the river is getting bigger and pushing the channel together.
Councilor Hooven.
Yeah, question on, again, on 658, the Freeman River has eroded that particular one as well.
Yep.
And even the landowner there, I see he's starting to move his buildings back from the property. And just curious as to, because that river now runs at a 90-degree angle right into that bank, and then it scoured a huge hole out right there.
Yeah, so we did, so again, after every flood event, we do go and inspect all of our bridge inventory that were impacted by floods. So this one as well was inspected. Based on the findings, the rock guide banks are held. There is a little bit of erosion around the concrete head slope, but at this time, we're just gonna continue to monitor it. So out of the flood, there's no action required at this time, but we are monitoring that one.
Anything else? I do have a question. We had concerns from a resident, kind of around where the Freeman River campsite is, but in regards to the erosion and in towards 33. And some of it comes down with they're just not really good indicators on the river when flooding or whatever for historic trends. But she was having concerns as far as, property erosion in the direction the river's going, and wondering if there's anything from a resident standpoint from the province that they could reach out as far as, berms or anything like that to try to direct it away from the province. Would that be through transportation to reach out to, or is that? She kind of sent out a blanket letter.
Any kind of modifications to river works, that would be something that they would have to approach Alberta Environment about.
And I think part of the concern with that one also was the fact that the way that the erosion's going currently also, if it continues the way it is, it's gonna start impacting Highway 33, just where it started to eat off on the side. Is that something that Alberta Transportation is currently looking at, possibly what we gotta do with protecting the highway or readjusting the highway if the river keeps taking it out?
Yeah, so we have had a look at what the Freeman is doing in relation to Highway 33, and at this point, we have no concerns. With the new bridge, it will, because of the proximity to the mouth of the Freeman, there will be additional design consideration taken, because you will, where the mouth of the Freeman ties into the Athabasca and the proximity of the new bridge, we will have to reinforce that area, but that's just something that we can easily design for. And then we're, right now, we've had no concern with the Freeman and the impacts at 33.
Anything else, Council? Councilor Dean?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So this, I don't mean to speak out of turn, this is not related to any of the flooding that's happened, or any of the bridge work, et cetera, but council did request to Alberta Transportation to have a look at traffic volume turning left off of Highway 43 within the Whitecourt town limits to a county road called West Mountain Road. I'm just wondering if that's crossed your desk, if you know anything about that.
It has crossed my desk, but I can't remember. I believe that was development driven, some of the improvements. So I'd have to get back to council about what information we had previously provided with regard to that.
Okay, could you do that within a month or 2 months? We're at convention in November, could we have a response by then?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, thanks.
It's okay to go through the CAO?
Yes,
Of
sir.
course.
Councilor Coogan?
Through the chair. There's another issue where 658 and Highway 33 meet. There's just a checkerboard sign there. There's been probably 3 or 4 incidents where log trucks have gone right through that intersection, across the highway into the ditch. There's no rumble strips. There's no flashing light. It's been brought up a few times that is an issue, and I'm just wondering if there is any standard for those highways, because, for example, the one that comes from Tiger Lily has rumble strips. It's a 90-degree. It's a secondary that goes out on Highway 33. It has a widening of the road as well, which is, it's just interesting that there's no speed control even from, coming down to there. And there's a tremendous amount of heavy traffic that goes through there. And there's been, this isn't the first one. I think I talked to the resident that lives right there, and since he's been living there, there's been about 8 or 9 that have gone right across the intersection and out into the woods. There was one about 2 weeks ago. It was a log truck.
So what I'll do is I'll have my operations group go out, have a look, and make sure that everything is there. I will share this additional, because this is the first I'm hearing of it. So I will share about the recent experiences of log trucks. So basically at 658, the way I understand it, they're not stopping, and they're going right through the intersection.
Yeah, it's a dead end.
Because
It
I
dead ends
believe
on-
it's a T intersection.
It's a T intersection.
Okay.
And they shoot right across the highway, and that's kind of because the hill comes down there. So it's a very dangerous spot.
Okay, so I will have our operations group just do a quick review on it, and part of the response on the other intersection, I will include what we find there as well. Thanks.
Anything else, Council? Councilor Prestidge?
Through the chair. I'd like to thank Alberta Transportation for finally getting 658 widened and repaved from Highway 43 to Blue Ridge. It's only taken 25 years. But they did a fantastic job.
Yes, they did, yeah. And I'll pass on your appreciation to everyone.
We had lunch with the mill managers from West Fraser, and they're just ecstatic that chip trucks aren't gonna fall off the road anymore. So, great job.
Councilor Prestidge?
Yeah, Your Worship, it's back to Michael in regards to the maintenance on the bridge, because of the deterioration of that. Is there anything to that and I guess the concern is the reaction versus the temporary fix, right? Is there anything that transportation has now put that on as a high priority, or, because again, and once you're aware of it, you did deal with it. The question is it adequate for further damage until the new bridge is started? Because you're probably looking, again, 3 to 5 years depending on the schedule, right?
Yeah, so what we've done, we are reducing the inspection cycle on the bridge, so that we are gonna be going out there more frequently, recognizing what's transpired here. And basically at this time, it's a wait and see, and then depending on what happens, we have to make a decision on what the next steps are. We are aware that there have been a few of the deck punch outs. This last one was bigger. But, you know, considering the size of it, I thought the response time was quite quick. We didn't have to reduce the weight on the bridge. We were able to keep traffic moving while we were doing the repairs. And we just, you know, we'll have to just keep, you know, trying to get the design done and then get funding for the replacement.
Councilor Williams.
So I have a question. There's lots of speculation and lots of people that know history on that bridge, but what is its end of date? Like, when does that bridge have to be replaced by? What's the end of its life cycle?
Well, every bridge is different. So typically, bridges are designed for about 75 years. 75 years. So this bridge would have been in the era of the 75 years life expectancy. As long as you're doing, you know, ongoing maintenance and things like that. And most bridges and many bridges, as they get towards the latter part of their life, you know, it starts showing its age, right? And the idea is that we try to get as much life out of that bridge as possible. And then you try and time the replacement to coincide when the bridge actually has to be taken out of service. The bridge is, I believe, about 67 years old, so the timing that, you know, the engineering is starting is about right on track. The where we're ahead in the sequencing is that we did the bridge planning a number of years before, and so that frees up about another year and a half of part of the engineering cycle. So I think we're a little bit ahead of the game right now than we would typically be with another type of bridge.
Councilor Prestick.
Through the chair. Like on that bridge, it's a steel cage bridge with a concrete deck. Like what is the biggest fault with them for deteriorating? Is it the steel or the concrete, or like what is gonna fail first?
Every bridge is different. It all depends on the age, constructability, traffic, loading, the environment that it's in. So you can't really say this is the one thing that happens every single time to a bridge. Every bridge has a different component that something goes wrong with it.
Councilor Coogan.
Yeah, just to answer the question, that part of the piers have been rebuilt on that bridge as well, so the piers are starting to show their age as well. So it's the decks and the piers that are deteriorating.
Anything else from council? All right, not seeing it. I'd like to thank you very much for coming, for your time. I believe we have dinner coming in, you said at 6?
Quarter to, but 6 o'clock is.
If you're around, you're more than welcome to stay with us. And
Well, thank you for the invitation. Unfortunately, I have a commitment that I have to get back to, so.
again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, council, I got a couple motions on the books here. I get, Councilor Williams.
I'll make a motion that council accepts Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors Delegation as information.
All right, motion on the floor, any discussion? Seeing none, call the question, all in favor? That one is carried. On to second motion. Anybody? Takers. Councilor Wilhelm.
I'll motion that council forward a letter to the Minister of Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors outlining Woodland County's concerns for proper funding of infrastructure and a proactive approach towards foreseeable infrastructure maintenance.
A motion on the floor. Just a question to administration before we, I guess, go with this motion. Would it be advisable to do it as an amendment to it, or a friendly amendment, or a third motion to ask for, I guess, a little more push from the councilors or council for that bridge, maybe to try to expedite the timeline?
Yeah, your worship, members of council, and depending on the conversation, that was a general motion to cover everything. However, council wants to specifically deal with a certain motion, depending on the friendly amendment, then that is definitely acceptable.
Councillor Dean?
In my opinion, that's a comprehensive motion, and then we can craft a letter to say what we want.
Okay. Any other discussion from council? Sorry, Richard, I see your hand go up there.
Yes, Reeve. I was just thinking, that bridge is technically not in our area. It's in the Barhead County. Have they been talked to? Like, would they maybe get on board and join the letter writing, or bring something up to transportation of their concerns as well? So it's not just us?
I think so. That would be, definitely something that I think I agree if it affects the municipality as well. Councillor Coogan?
Well, I know for sure that Glenn Van Dyken is aware and has brought that up. And that particular, that structure connects the county of Woodlands with the county of Barhead. So it's actually, it's used by everybody in the province. So it's not just us that should be concerned about it. I think it's a concern for the heavy traffic in Swan Hills. It should be a concern for the concrete or the gravel operators in Pride Valley, because they use that bridge all the time. So, like Councillor Dean says, we could craft a comprehensive letter that
Okay. With that, still a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Okay, that one is passed. Let's move on to our next delegation. Mr. Roach is coming up here. Hey, how you doing? I guess we'll start here also for you. Just do some introductions around the table so you know who you're talking to here. Sorry, Mr. Frank.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Carrie.
Gavin Williams, councillor for Fort Assiniboine Tinmouth.
Bruce Preston, Council of Wood.
John Burrows, Whitecourt West.
Dave Cush and Sommel.
you're looking for your Goose Lake.
Aaron Wallum, Whitecourt East.
Alan Dean, Whitecourt Central.
All right, Mr. Roach.
Good evening, Council. My pleasure to be here with Faye Mishniak, President of the Whitecourt Indigenous Friends Society. Council has formed an Indigenous awareness subcommittee, and one of the things that has come forward from that committee is how can we proceed in a very meaningful way as we move together down the path of reconciliation. And so we've reached out to Faye, our local expert, to help to guide us along the way, and I'll turn it over to her.
Okay, I just attached a couple things just for your information. People were asking me, like, when do you smudge? When do you say the land acknowledgement? And I think that's a personal kind of thing, like it's up to, like, events for sure, public events, I think it'd be showing respect to say the land acknowledgement of where you're sitting on what treaty. I attached one for, this is one that we say. Did you get a chance to read it? So that covers like Treaty 6 where we're sitting, it covers the Métis people, the different nations, and Treaty 8 which we border on. So it's just respectful to say the land acknowledgement when you're hosting a big event. It's up to you how you say it, as long as you acknowledge the trees and the land that you're sitting on. And it's really up to you when you want to do it. But just to be respectful if you're at a big event, like say, like when you guys have awards dinners or something that the general public may come to. And I'm not saying, nobody is actually saying that you have to say the land acknowledgement all the time. It's a personal preference, and you can choose your own words. because a lot of people don't know, they wanna step on people's toes and they don't wanna do something wrong where they're gonna offend someone, you know? So that's what, that's how we feel about the land acknowledgement, and a lot of people say that Indigenous people shouldn't say the land acknowledgement because they're Indigenous and this was our land or whatever. But again, that's personal preferences. I really don't find it offensive, or I don't mind doing the land acknowledgement whatsoever, but you know, it's like, once again, it's a personal preference. There is no correct way. A lot of different nations, a lot of different bands, et cetera, they all have their own protocol. So we just try to be respectful and follow where we are and who we're with, you know. It's really hard to get a different answer from, like, let's say Alexis, they do things differently. Alexander, they do different things differently, you know. Everybody does it differently, so just to be safe. So if you do your land acknowledgement, and in your own words, just that's every important gathering, and that shows respect to the Indigenous people. Because we all want to work together towards truth and reconciliation, so that's a big step towards it. In the last few years, that's really come about, especially like how I started in this work was just over 2 years ago when they first found all those graves in Kamloops, and there was 215, and they keep finding more and more and more. So that's when I just got passionate about it, and I wanted to make a change, and I wanted to like work together as one nation, all of us, with respect and in harmony, because before it was always, well, you know, there was a lot of stereotyping, and things are starting to change now. If you read 21 Things You May Have Not Known About the Indian Act here, the book is lovely. I even took the training, and it was just some of the things that were on there were really hard to believe. And a lot of people, like, you know, there's misconceptions saying Indigenous people, they want their land back and they can't get over it. You know, there's so many different things that people say, like even like using language wrong. Like, anyways, like this that I gave you, there's actually free training. There's free resources out there, just to give you a little idea about what it's about, like the history and what we're working towards too. And then someone else asked me about smudging. Like, when do you smudge? Do you have to do it at every meeting, like, certainly not. It is like a preference, like I say, and it's part of ceremony for Indigenous people. So I would never expect, you know, town council or county council to do it at every meeting or whatever. Like, you know, we don't even always do it at all our meetings, but we do it in ceremony. Like, and Bert wants to know how we can work together. And I think in the spring, I partnered with Yellowhead, with Michelle Jones from Community Futures Yellowhead East. Partnered with her, got a grant from you guys actually. And we put on the cultural awareness training that was out at the casino. And I'm not sure who all attended. That was a very short and sweet version. And my son, actually, he does that kind of stuff now too. He works he is a volunteer for We Matter, which is it's for Indigenous youth, and they go around all over the countryside training people and doing workshops on all kinds of things like truth and reconciliation, ceremonies, teachings, all that kind of stuff. So we're getting him to partner with Team for Success, and he's going to be doing a lot of stuff with the schools in this area as well. And so that's what I want. That's our main focus, is to try to educate people and like educate them about the past and educate them about what we can do in the future, just to work together with respectfully. So, yeah, so we did put on that cultural awareness training, and it was only half a day. Michelle and I would like to do it again. And then in the afternoon, the Team for Success and the manager, she's also on our board, and she's also my niece. They did the blanket exercise, which was in the afternoon. And that's, I don't know if anybody's ever attended, but it's very powerful, and it starts you right from the beginning, like 1867, all the way to, it doesn't cover truth and reconciliation, or it doesn't cover missing and murdered Indigenous women, things like that. It only goes to a certain point. But hopefully, like, in the training, it will address those issues as well. Because there are so many issues. Missing and murdered Indigenous women is one, and like I say, what's happening now with all the babies' bodies that are turning up now. So we need to understand intergenerational trauma that Indigenous people are facing. It goes back a long ways. I mean, you don't even have to have had experience, but your parents or grandparents could have, and it just carries on because, you know, Indigenous people are ripped of their culture and their language, and I think, you know, we just want to like get it back, like be proud of being Indigenous, and like I say, working together respectfully. That's the number one thing. Like moving forward, you know, nobody wants to live in the past and blame everybody for this or that, and that's my hugest goal. Is like on both sides, just say you can't just. Well, you can't tell people what to do, but you can say, moving forward, you know, a lot of people, you can say don't live in the past, but it's really hard for a lot of people not to live in the past because of the trauma. But moving forward, respectfully, together as one nation, I think that's a huge deal, and that's why we do what we do with the Indigenous Society. Right now, we're just putting on events, we're putting on workshops, workshops to help people heal from their intergenerational trauma, workshops to educate the public. And eventually we want to become a friendship center, which is our goal, because this is only our second year. Our anniversary date is September 20th. So we've been a society for almost 2 whole years, and so once we've been a society for 2 years, we can now work towards creating a friendship center. And that means creating a space, and we want to make it a safe space for Indigenous and non-Indigenous people alike, just to come, hang out. I can tell you one thing, I've worked in the public sector for a long time, and I know that there are a lot of Indigenous people who are too frightened to come and ask for help, like with whether it be for their children or help doing taxes or for counseling, whatever, for addictions, you know. And I feel that if we had that Indigenous center, you know, we could bridge that gap. You know, we could go with them to their referrals or refer them, and I think they just feel more safe seeking help from other Indigenous people. So, you know, and then, like I say, just a place to get their cultural, you know, come over and have some bannock or make some bannock or do some beading, you know, a place to like do your cultural things too. So that's our big goal, that's our huge goal, and that's what, after this, our Orange Shirt Day event, that's what we're going to be focusing on, is creating that space, and hopefully doing all the paperwork and stuff that you have to do to get there. So it's gonna be a huge undertaking, but that's what we've been working towards for the last couple of years.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dean, see your hand up there.
Through the chair, thank you and welcome.
Thanks.
Just curious if there's been representation from Woodlands County at any of your Indigenous Friends Committee meetings?
No, but to be fair, we haven't invited anyone really. You know, we're just starting that. Like, Just like at our last meeting, we had like representatives from St. Joseph's School. We've had Michelle Jones from Community Futures, but that's about it, really, to be truthful. But now people are reaching out actually and asking if they could attend our meetings. So that's a really good thing, and like anybody's welcome. But if they wanted like to present or just be a guest, you know, just let us know.
Sure. So just to follow on that, as Bert said, council struck a committee. And that's why, you know, we've invited you to come and speak today. If council can be made aware of when your meetings are, we could certainly try to make a committee member available to come and listen, observe, and perhaps contribute.
For sure. They're usually I think the first Tuesday of every month, and we have them over at Alexander Safety. They let us use their boardroom and such. So, and then we usually have them, I think, around, I don't remember, six, I think. We try to make it early in the day so people can, and they're like usually about an hour long.
Okay. Would you be able to supply Carrie with, say, the next date, and you can plan that out?
Yes, for sure.
Councillor Prestidge?
Through the chair, I appreciate you coming. I'm Métis. Our lineage goes back to 1710. And I can remember my grandmother, what she was going through when I was a little kid. You know, it wasn't nice. She wasn't treated very well. But where I have a issue is like with the land acknowledgement is everybody's got a different version of what should happen.
Yes.
And if we do one thing, is it gonna kind of insult another group? Or it would be so nice if the local area that we are in,
Yes.
if the native groups got together and said, this is what we would like, not what we think they would like.
Well, like I said, the one that I wrote, this is what I wrote for our society, what I read. It does cover all the nations and the territory. Like, you know, like it covers region, Treaty 6, Treaty 8. And I mentioned like the Métis, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, Dakota Sioux, the Cree. And which is what all I know is in this, it's where we sit, we're sitting right here. Like I can't take this to, let's say Edmonton, and read the same land acknowledgement, you know? So it's gotta be, it's basically based on where you're sitting at.
Yeah, because I've talked to some native people that I know, and I asked them, and they really couldn't care whether we said anything or not. So it's so frustrating to know what to do.
Yes, but if, did I also give you, sorry for interrupting you, Bruce, like the pledge, did I send you guys
Yes.
that pledge?
Yeah.
I didn't print
Included,
it.
page 6.
Yeah, I've got it. I know it was here.
Sorry, I didn't print it.
It's okay. There it is.
Oh, so this is also personal, this pledge, and you could also say whatever you wanted on there. This is just an example. But in the pledge, it does say, or thought, ensure land acknowledgements are included in any meetings, events, etc. You know, so that's just, it's not written in stone, it's for your own personal use. So that's just how where this came from, and it came from this Indigenous, corporate training. That's where I got the, template for this personal pledge.
Like, what I would like to see is once a year at the start of, after our org meeting, is we invite some of the local native groups and do a yearly pledge to them, and not at every meeting.
Yeah, like I said, it's totally up to you. You want to do- You don't.
I feel doing it every meeting after, it just gets people ignored.
Like I said, we don't even do it at our meetings, every meeting.
But I do, you know, I agree with, you know, like at the org meeting or something, at the end of the year, possibly doing something, or maybe do a sunset or serve it or something, you know, wanted that, but what we'll say as far as large public events and stuff like that, through a lot of organizations and a lot of or businesses, that's kind of becoming common practice amongst them, and I'm not again, you know, like we only have so many public events that we go to a year that we host, and showing that, you know, for the couple minutes that it takes to show that bit of respect to the people in our community, I don't think is out of the question.
Yeah, I'm just talking like every
Every council meeting, I
meeting.
think that might become a little,
Yeah, I think
little
that,
tedious, because it's one every 2 weeks. It's,
Yeah,
yeah, I agree. Like I said, we have meetings once a month and we don't do it every single meeting. However, we're putting on a big event, and even on Indigenous Peoples' Day, something like that, then we're definitely gonna say it or get someone to say it for us.
Councillor Dean, and then Councillor Coogan.
So moving towards the event on September 30th, I think Bert said that there's been communication through Bert with a presence for our council and our county at that event. And can you just maybe explain to council what you guys are thinking?
I believe, well, you're coming, right?
Yeah, so the idea was we would have one of our counselors there provide some water in the county tent, and I think that was where we were at so far.
Yeah.
I know Carrie and I had talked about the list, and I apologize for putting you on the spot. Carrie, do you remember anything else that we had on that list other than water, tent, and council for the September 30th event? I think
So-
those were the three.
Yeah, we usually invite like the mayor and Reeve or designate, if you couldn't make it, just to say a few words, you know, just to show your support, like it doesn't have to be long-winded speech or anything, just to, you know, to show your support, that's about it, really.
Councillor Coogan, back to Councillor Dean.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming, and I just like to say I read the 21 things I didn't know about the Indian Act, and I was appalled, and I was appalled more at the fact that I went to school my entire life here, and I did not know any of that history. And for me, it was a huge eye opener. Not that you know, I didn't know that there were issues, but it was an eye opener that that's the first time that there was actually something that was documented that told the story. It became a big read in our family. My daughter currently she's a documentary filmmaker. She's working with the Kelly Lake Band. She's just finished doing a film with TJ and Felicia with the Canadian Bass Society, where it's the passing of the paddle. And she had the opportunity to interview all these kids. So I think some of the groundwork is being done there. She's also working with some of the Indigenous seat keepers. She's doing a documentary on women who dig, and she has chosen to use the cultural and the background of our Canadian Indigenous people
That's great.
to ground some of the episodes that she wants to do. So the problem that she has is that most of this stuff always comes because it comes from the colonial perspective, and she would like to have more and more Indigenous people involved in doing the historic piece where it comes from their perspective, so we can actually bridge that gap.
Yes.
So I'd like to chat with you afterwards, and
Sure.
I'll put her in touch with you because that's her passion. So
That'd be great.
it would really be
I wanted to say, like, I've gone on various trainings, like through Yellowhead Travel College, I'm going to Grand Prairie in a couple more days. Not just through the society, but also through my job, through my work, but, you know, when you listen to a survivor that actually went to this school, that actually got their hair chopped off, that actually got beaten, that actually got all this stuff. Like when you actually listen to a real live person and their story, it's just, I can't even say, like, it's just unbelievable, because you hear about it, you know, you read about it, but when you actually hear somebody, it's powerful. So we will have a couple of residential school survivors at our event. One guy's name is Chakota, and he's 75 years old. We have another elder from Alexander Nation that she's coming, and then we have a local man that's coming. So they tell their stories, and
Councillor Dean?
Yeah, thanks. I know 2 years ago when Annabelle spoke, I looked around at the people that were there, including my wife, and the power of that moment was visible. There were tears. There was people hearing that for the first time. It awakens a person to what happened.
yes.
100, 200 years ago. But on a positive note, like you say, moving forward, we weren't able to participate in the National Indigenous Day on June 21st because the McLeod River decided to.
Yes. So I'm sorry about that.
But I know that our reef, Dave Cush was scheduled to speak, and then just circumstances prevented it. So.
Yes. That was the day.
So that's another event that council would like to have a role in, whatever role you guys deem.
Yes, like when you came on the missing and murdered Indigenous women, like when you came on that walk with us, along with Serena LaPointe, like that meant a lot. You know, just to have someone there and actually taking part. So if you want to join in our walk around the parade route at 11 o'clock on September 30th, then anybody's welcome to.
Did that last year and I got stung by a wasp and my arm swole up, but yeah, we'll be there again.
Yeah.
Question I have for administration, under our recommendation says to just accept for information, but there is an appetite to try to work some of these land acknowledgements and stuff into it, but I'm assuming we're probably gonna have to do a policy or adjust a policy around these. So I'm wondering what the recommendation should be from administration.
Yeah, your worship, members of council, the step that we asked for tonight's meeting is to have Faye attend so that council gets an understanding of that. From that, once you accept that, if there are additional motions that council wants to do, that administration bring a recommendation, that administration, and again, I'm just, from the conversation I heard, that administration invite the treaty members to a council meeting to understand their perspective. There's a number of ways, we can draft up a acknowledgement, right? So there's a number of ways. This was just the first step to get to understand the friends of the society to join or to understand their perspective. So,
Councillor Dean?
In my opinion, the motion that's before us, the RFD, does accomplishes what we wanted to today, but I would be happy to make another motion to refer the conversation to the committee and have the committee come back to council with some recommendations for council to consider. So I can do that after this motion.
Okay, anything else from council before we see Mr. Frank Hamlis up?
yeah, your worship, just the other thing was because September 30th is fast approaching and council has 2 meetings in the month of September. That was the other reason. So the individuals would come back to the committee, if that's the motion, so that it gets back to council to acknowledge September 30th as well. So that was kind of our administration's thought.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Meaning is the committee has to work fast to get the recommendation so that we can get it on the council agenda.
Council Prestage, your hands up.
Yeah, just something that happened in our family. We have a family tree book. And this is how unfair things were back then. In 1867, our family back then owned land on the Red River in downtown Winnipeg. Next door was Louis Riel's parents. And the guy that owned the land, he was a Manitoba court magistrate. In 1867, they were kicked off their land with nothing and sent on their way. That's how unfair this was back then. And then you wonder why people are upset.
Councilor Dean.
I'm prepared to move that council accept the Whitecourt Indigenous Friends Society's delegation as information.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion on motion? So I'm called question, all in favor? That is carried. And Councilor Dean, second motion.
Yeah, we'll just move that council direct the Indigenous Awareness Committee to come back to council with some recommendations for a path forward prior to September 30th.
Okay. We have another motion on the floor. Any discussion on that second motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that one is carried. Thank you very much, Faye, for coming,
Thanks
joining
for
us, and the
having me.
information.
Yeah.
She didn't know where we were, so I told them.
Oh, so they're just late finding
Yeah.
it.
That's not calling.
And we have a couple of committee of the whole ones. I just wonder, should we break for dinner, Mr. Frank, or?
They're lost, so they were waiting for a phone call. So if you want to go in closed session,
So they're lost getting here?
yeah,
No worries.
then we can deal with it, go off camera, and then I don't believe we need to go back on camera because the motions are fairly straightforward.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. So with that, I guess if we can get a motion from council to go into committee of the whole. Councilor Dean,
Move that council goes into committee of the whole.
under Foyt's 19, 24, and 27.
Thank you.
All right, motion on the floor. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And we are gonna go into